Hello, I'm Nisha. Welcome to Momentous Rise YouTube channel. Here I will be sharing videos about narcissism and narcissistic abuse. Today we are going to focus on narcissistic abuse in romantic relationship, and this video has three parts. First, we are going to define narcissistic abuse. Second, we are going to see the components of narcissistic abuse, and finally look at the impact on our mind and body. So let's get started. So while we often use the term narcissistic to describe a person, it's important to understand this from a psychological perspective. The abuse is tied to the traits associated with narcissistic personality disorder. So these traits include a pervasive need for admiration, an inflated sense of self-importance, a lack of empathy, and a profound sense of entitlement. A person with these traits may use a variety of tactics like gaslighting, love bombing, and blame shifting to maintain their self-image and control in a relationship. So what exactly is narcissistic abuse? It is a pattern of emotionally and psychologically manipulative behaviors used by an individual with narcissistic traits to control and dominate their partner, specifically when we talk in the context of a romantic relationship. Unlike one-off argument or a simple disagreement, this is a consistent, systematic campaign of subtle and overt, sometimes covert, actions that diminishes the other person's sense of self. It's a form of abuse that is often hidden. It may not involve physical violence all the time, which makes it particularly difficult for both survivors and those on the outside to recognize it as abuse at all. It doesn't fit in the stereotypical model of abuse. Survivors are often dismissed and their pain is invalidated, which only serves to make that abuse more powerful. It operates in the shadows of emotional and psychological manipulation. So let's dive into the core components that define this type of abuse. So these are tools the abuser uses. Recognizing them is a key to understand the pattern of the abuse. The first one is lack of empathy. At the heart of this profound abuse is lack of empathy. Empathy is our ability, a human's ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. A narcissist often struggles with this competency. According to the researchers on personality disorders, this is not simply a choice to be cruel. It's the core deficit that prevents them from truly seeing the other person as a separate human being with their own thoughts and feelings. To them, the other person, or for example a partner, is a tool to serve their needs for admiration, validation, control, etc. And this is why they can inflict so much pain without any remorse. It's important to understand there are two types of empathy. The first one is cognitive empathy, which is perspective taking. This type of empathy focuses on understanding another person's mental state, thoughts and feelings, essentially putting yourself in other person's shoes. It's about intellectually grasping the other person's situation and perspective. Second one is emotional empathy, which is affective empathy. This type of empathy involves experiencing the emotions that the other person is feeling. It's more visceral and emotional response, where you might feel the same emotion as the other person, such as sadness or joy or anger. A narcissist often has cognitive empathy but significantly lack emotional empathy. So they don't feel any regret when they cause someone pain. This is why they can inflict so much hurt without a second thought. They simply don't have that emotional capacity to see the other person as a separate human being with their own feelings, choices. The second aspect is control and domination. Narcissistic abuse is fundamentally about power and control. The abuser seeks to establish complete dominance over your emotions, your thoughts, and your reality. They will use tactics to make you dependent on them for your sense of self-worth and happiness. This control is their primary goal, and they will go to great lengths to achieve it, often by isolating you from your friends and family and undermining your confidence in your own judgment. The third aspect is inability to take responsibility. A defining feature of this abuse is the abuser's or narcissist's absolute refusal to accept the blame. Any wrongdoing or conflict is always, without exception, is your fault or the other person's fault. They are the masters of projection, a defense mechanism where they displace their own negative traits and feelings onto the other person. And this is why you may have spent so much time apologizing for things you haven't done, trying to make sense of their actions and ultimately taking the burden of their actions. From a psychological perspective, when we talk about the impact on our mind and body, from a psychological perspective, chronic emotional abuse leads to a breakdown of our self-esteem and identity. Your sense of self is a construct of your experiences and how you are treated by others. When you are constantly told that your perceptions are wrong and that you are worthless, your internal compass breaks down. Over time, you begin to question everything you know about yourself, leading to a state of profound confusion and self-doubt. You may feel like you've lost the person you once were. And this is a common experience, and it is directly linked to the systematic nature of the abuse. From a neuroscience perspective, from a physiological perspective, prolonged exposure to any form of abuse, including emotional abuse, activates our body's stress response system. Research into chronic stress and trauma shows that the HPA axis is constantly in a state of high alert. This leads to elevated cortisol levels, the primary stress hormone actually. This constant state of fight or flight can lead to significant changes in our brain. For example, some studies suggest that chronic stress can lead to a hyperactive amygdala, the brain's fear center, and reduced hippocampus, which is vital for memory and emotional regulation. So this can manifest as anxiety, hypervigilance, and an inability to feel safe even after someone left the abuse actually, or abusive environment. So let's look at the core dynamics of the abuse. To truly grasp what is narcissistic abuse, we must look at the overall pattern of the relationship. It's often not a straight line of cruelty. It often follows a predictable cycle, which we are going to explore in the next video. But for now, understand that this cycle typically involves 3 phases. The first one is idealization. That's the beginning of the intense and overwhelming relationship. You are love-bombed, showered with attention, compliments, and affection. The narcissists create a soulmate persona, making you feel special. This phase is designed to create a powerful emotional bond that will make you incredibly difficult to leave later on, even though you recognize the abuse. Second is devaluation. This is where the mask starts to slip. The compliments will be replaced with criticism, subtle put downs, and emotional withdrawal, even silence. You are no longer seen as the perfect. You are now a source of all problems in their relationship, and you will constantly feel like you are walking on the eggshells. You never know when the conflict will happen, trying to get back to the person they were at the beginning of the relationship. The third aspect is discard. The narcissist may suddenly and abruptly end the relationship, often with little or no explanation. This can be devastating. It leaves the survivor with immense confusion and pain, as they were still emotionally invested in the idealization phase. Understanding these core dynamics is the first step towards reclaiming yourself What you've experienced is not a misunderstanding or a series of bad arguments. It was a pattern of abuse. The feeling of being confused, isolated, or anxious is not a sign of your weakness, but it was a predictable and natural response to a deeply damaging experience, specifically toxic experience. By understanding what and the why of this particular abuse, we can move past the self-blame and begin to see the situation for what it is. So this knowledge is your foundation as your first step in moving forward, no matter where you are in your healing journey. And uncovering these patterns can be painful, but I hope that understanding the details behind them provide you with a sense of clarity and validation. If this information resonated with you, the most impactful thing that you can do is to share it with someone who might be navigating a similar experience. In our next video, we will continue our exploration of narcissistic abuse. And for those who are interested in long-form content, I will share the links to my newsletter in the description. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video in this playlist. Take care.